everyone, I'm excited to have you here. Want to know how to include slicers in your Google Sheet? Stay with me and I'll show you how in this video. Here I have sales summary sheet where I created 3 pivot tables. If you missed how I did this and want to know how, head over to my channel or click on the link below. Now let's create some slicers. I'll start by inserting some rows above the pivot tables. This is where I'll be placing the slicers. Next, I'll move to the menu bar, navigate to the data option and click on it. This brings a list of options. I'll locate the add slicer option and click on it. Immediately, the slicer panel appears by the right. The select a data range dialog box and the slicer filter appears on the sheet. I'll begin with the select a data range dialog box. I'll head over to my vehicle sales report, which I'll be using to link my slicers since it's the data set I use in creating the pivot tables. I'll click on the first cell on the sheet, then I'll press Ctrl+A to select all the data. Notice this was also suggested as the data range. When I click OK, it immediately brings me back to my sales summary sheet where the slicer is created. I'll drag this to the top rows. Now I'll move to the slicer panel by the right. There's a checkbox that allows you to apply slicer to the pivot tables. Checking the box means that you want your slicer to be applied to your pivot tables to have control over it. Unchecking the box means you don't want the slicer to control your pivot tables. The essence of this tutorial is to use the slicer as a filter for my pivot table. This will control the result that will be displayed in the pivot table, so I'll leave that checked. Next, I'll move to the column option to choose a column. This will tell me what column will be used to filter my pivot table result. I'll be selecting the year column for this slicer. Next, I'll navigate to the customize option. Here I can change the column header, the font size, and even have some formatting done on the text. I can also change the slicer background color. I'll be changing that to blue. I'll also do a bit of text formatting. Once done, I'll close the panel by clicking on the X icon. I can reduce the size of the slicer by clicking on it and using the adjustable lines that appears around the slicer. When I click on the drop-down arrow, it shows all the data under the year column. Since my data set only have 2024 data, I have only 2024 showing in my slicer. When you click on the slicer, you will notice 3 dots. When clicked on, it will bring up some option to edit, copy, or delete slicer. You can also set the current filter as default. For now, I'll select the copy option. This is used to duplicate your created slicer instead of repeating the create process. I'll Ctrl+V to paste that on the sheet, and a duplicated copy of the slicer is added to the sheet. I'll drag that next to the first slicer, click on the 3 dots, and select the edit option. This immediately opens the slicer panel by the right. I'll go on to change the column to long month name and then navigate to the customize section to change the column title from year to month. I'll close the panel. Clicking on the month drop down, I have various months to select from. I'll select only January, scroll down and click OK. Notice how the pivot table result has changed, providing only the data linked to the month January. I'll go back and add February to the month selection. Notice how the pivot table is updated based on the new selection. I'll go on to paste another slicer on the sheet. I'll drag it close to the previous ones and then use the 3 dots to edit and open the slicer panel. This time I'll be changing the column to country of manufacture. I'll navigate to the customize section to change the title. Then I'll close the panel. I'll adjust the size of the slicer so the title is shown completely. Here I can update the result of my pivot table by selecting a country, then click OK. Notice how the result changed? I'll go on to update the slicer by selecting more countries, then click OK. Notice how the slicer icon changes to a funnel when an item is selected in the slicer. This indicates a filter option has been selected and it's been applied. I'll go on to do a bit format changes on the slicer. I'll also be adjusting the sizes of the slicers. I'll clear all filters and select all items for all slicers. Finally, I'll rearrange the slicers to make the sheet have a different look. Adding a slicer to your sheet makes your report more interactive and focused by allowing you to filter your data more easily by just clicking. Here, I can also use a filter icon instead of the drop-down arrow to select an item. Hope this was helpful to you. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you in my next video.